I think people have always had a lot of hopes for what Trivium could be. Of course, we've always thought, we could live up to a lot of the expectations that our fans have had for us, what media has had for us, magazines, and this album, in my opinion, is living up to those expectations and writing massive songs, writing big melodies, writing big riffs that people remember. And that's kind of the goal with writing this record.
We did a lot of talking, just kind of figuring out like what we wanted the record to be before we really even started writing, and we kind of wrote to that goal. So there was more of a master plan and a vision before the record really even got underway.
I really wanted to embrace as much as possible of the old school way of recording, of what I've always heard in legend of how bands used to do it. And with this record we wanted to go to the roots of what it is to be a band, and that's jamming in a room together and allowing the music to create itself once you have the blueprint set.
The classic way of doing things with our modern spin on it.
With Silence in the Snow, it's hard to pinpoint exactly what's going on with it, but I remember one of the earlier thoughts we had was people whose favorite bands are one band. They should dig into what their favorite bands were into. And for us, we went back to the metal greats, the ones that laid the foundation for what everyone would build upon later on in metal's history. And then digging back into our heroes, it helped inspire what Silence in the Snow would become.
Inspiration-wise, obviously the bands that we've always loved since the beginning, the Metallicas, the Iron Maidens, Megadeths,
Testament, Slayer, Killswitch Engage, and In Flames, and At the Gates.
Judas Priest, King Diamond, Merciful Fate.
Ozzy Osbourne, Black Sabbath, Dio, Rainbow with Dio.
The list goes on and on. Tons of classic rock, tons of classic metal. It's all kind of piled up into our sound. Even the Gothenburg sound, bands like In Flames, Soilwork, Dark Tranquillity, which really made up a huge part of the early Trivium sound, like Amber to Inferno and Ascendancy. Even some more underground stuff, Death, which was a huge inspiration on some of the riffing on Ascendancy. That's stuff that stayed with us. It just takes different forms, and we're a constantly evolving band. We're always growing, but we don't try to cast off those influences in our sound. We're always trying to present them, and I think now it's more of a subconscious thing. I don't have to listen to those records to know that they're in the way I write. They're just ingrained in my mind, in my memory.
What I love about our band that's also difficult about our band is that with every record we release, or with every record we've ever released, it has certain facets of fans that say, this one's the best one. No, this one's the best one. Like, we've got legions of fans that say Ascendancy is the best and The Crusade's the worst thing that ever happened. Legions of fans that love The Crusade that don't like Ascendancy. Ones that love Shogun. Ones that love In Waves. People that are coming in through the singles of, like, Villainy Thrives and Strife on Vengeance Falls, and having never known any of our older stuff and thinking it's our first record, then seeing, oh man, these guys got 6 records total.
Unless you really get out and kind of like create stuff and know what it's like to make things, to create, then I think it's easier to explain, like, yeah, like, you did it and it did really well, and so now we're going to try something else. We're going to build upon it. We're going to add to the recipe. We're going to paint something even better. One thing I've learned from all the records, because we have done different stuff, record to record, is that the more you know what you want to do at the very end, the better it's going to become.
It's always been about making what we want to make, and that's why every single record has had a different flair. While still remaining Trivium, I find that it's more fun for our fans to not know exactly what they're getting into.
just kind of been a band that came out of nowhere with things. Ascendancy was unexpected. I don't think the label anticipated that album really doing as well as it did, and neither did we.
The thing that we had to do that a lot of bands didn't have to do is we had to grow up in the public eye. We had to figure out what kind of people we were, how we wanted to dress, what t-shirts we wanted to wear, how we wanted our hair to look in front of people. And we had to figure this out as we were on magazine covers or when we were in blogs, and we had to figure out what our music videos were kind of on our own.
What I remember about the beginning of Trivium is that, just doing tours where we just didn't fit right, but having to try to make it work and kind of fighting to win a crowd or just to kind of be respected by peers. It's something you want. I mean, you don't want to feel like the odd man out on a tour. We're all 18 or 19, those were our college years, was touring, around the world. So there was definitely some growing pains and growing up that had to be done. Just over the last few years that it's become so dependent on recording on laptops and then going right into the studio that we wanted to sort of rebel against that, and we wanted to get away from that ourselves in our own writing.
We use technology not as a crutch, but as a tool of efficiency. So yes, we track to Pro Tools, yes, we track digitally, and the reason for that is it's comparable sounds. The one big difference with this record is our first time ever recording on a Neve board. Some of you are familiar with a Neve board, and for us it really captures that analog feel. It captures what I imagine that recording to tape sound is, while embracing bits of technology and embracing the old school way of doing things, and that's jamming as a band, writing music as a band, making changes between the band and the producer, and recording these things to a great piece of equipment like this.
A lot of times in the studio there might be like a big board like we have now, but they're doing everything in Pro Tools and the board is just being used to monitor the sound. So it's not really utilizing any of those, the Neve preamps or any of the stuff that gave each record kind of like its own unique sound. That's why you listen to a lot of records from pretty much almost like the 90s back, and all my favorite records, listening to them, each record has like this uniqueness to it that makes it special and gives it like a really cool vibe.
That's on guitar.
Thank you.
Watch where you're going. I saw you almost walk into the chainsaw blade. Do some photos today, so we're driving into the middle of hell, the heart of darkness, to be exact.
We got a chainsaw and a machete, so I think we're okay.
We let the music inspire the visual art, and then the visual art would kind of lay the blueprint of where we need to go with everything. I wanted an Oni skull that can be a mascot for Trivium, because I've never seen an Oni skull. Like when I've seen the masks in Japan, it's always they're like the living faces. It was originally designed by my tattoo artist Khalil Rinty. So when Khalil made the Ibaraki 2D drawing, we had this very talented man named Vincent make the masks of it.
Hey, be the camera guy.
It's probably all out of focus too. The last two records that really taught us a lot about artwork and how important and how crucial it is to really be on top of that. You're not going to compromise anything, you know, whether it's the mix, how it sounds, how the songs are. That's been a great thing, is like, we just haven't compromised on anything. This is exactly how we want the record to be. And as a musician, that's the ultimate feeling, is when you get to the end to say, I did it exactly how I wanted, it's perfect, or it's as close to perfect as you can get it, and you're happy with that. And then it's just really up to people, you know, relating to it and connecting with it. And that's the documentary part 2 at the end of the tour cycle, see if it lived up to it.
It's supposed to last though, and just get ready to pull. Push it back.
That's such a cool piece, man. Holy crap.
When I speak a lot about my hobbies, and I mentioned Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu a lot, and it showed me how I could build something from nothing into something. It made me reflect upon everything else I do, and it showed me that everything in life that you do, you can do better at it, and you can add different practices into what you love to make it better. So I recently started taking guitar lessons, and I know a lot of people would assume that since I'm in a band that's signed and we've got 7 records out and I can play lead guitar and I can play rhythm and I can do all this stuff in front of, you know, people at festivals or shows, that I've arrived, that I've mastered guitar. But by no means do I feel like I've mastered guitar. I can't sight read. I don't know music theory, all these different things. And for me, I really wanted to learn how to play classical guitar. I feel like I want to get back to the roots of what the instrument really is and learn it from the ground up. So I wanted to learn classical technique, how to read music for classical guitar, and how to play classical guitar right. When I started doing that, I was like, I should get better at other things I do. And one of the things everybody knows I love is food. I'm always posting pictures of other people's food, so I want to learn how to do it myself. This constant circular motion of everything that I do is benefiting everything else, and I want to keep living in that. I want to make sure that everything that I do, that everything that I love, I do it well, and I still have fun in it, but that I do it right and I do it well.
Pretty much in the studio, regardless of endorsements or gear that we use personally or for live, when it comes to the studio, we're pretty much open to whatever sounds the best or whatever is going to get us the end result that we're looking for. So if we're using, you know, our own personal guitars with our signature series, since everyone has their own bass or guitar or whatever, you know, we either use that, or if something else sounds better, so be it, we'll use it. You know, it's all about the end result for the record, you know, to get it to where we want it to sound. So using the Kemper or using a tube head and cabs and stuff like that, you know, we're pretty much, you know, we have our live sound that we go out on tour that we all love and we play, but in the studio it's pretty much, you know, whatever we need to do to get the record to sound the way we want.
before we even got up to the record, we kind of had a bit of a scare with Matt's vocals and the whole. It was kind of like something that was always on the horizon with how he was screaming, and you kind of want to put things like that off because something hasn't happened. But when we got to Rock on the Range and Matt, had to literally force himself through a 5-6 song set painfully, it became apparent that the way that he was screaming and the way he was singing was going to be detrimental. And regardless of what I want, what a band wants, what the fans want out of someone, you can't force that, because it's either you rectify how things are being done, or you let things go and then it becomes a permanent problem that is not going to be fixed.
I'd been screaming definitely with incorrect technique for the last 15 years of my life, and that's what gave me vocal issues over the years. And with this record, it's pretty apparent that there's no screaming. That wasn't a thing that was a conscious decision. We didn't say we want no screaming to be on this record. We said whatever this record needs, it's going to have. And for us, when we got through it and we were working through it, we didn't see parts that needed it. And the reason why I started screaming in the first place in Trivium, I wasn't a good singer. It sounded bad. It sounded really, really weird. And I kept trying to dance around it and try to figure out what I could do. And eventually, the early stages of what became my screaming that people knew and loved from our early records was what it became. So I started screaming in the band because I could not sing. And over the years, I kept trying to work at it, and I started adding more and more singing, because that's what I've always wanted to do. I didn't want to be a screamer. It wasn't my decision to become one, but it was out of necessity that I had to.
For me, with the screaming, is that I don't think it's one of those things where that this album shuts that completely out of the equation for our writing. To me, that's just another tool we have that we can bring out when we want, and that to me is how it's meant to be. Because I think there will be a day when, maybe there'll be another song like an In Waves where the main hook of the song requires a scream, because that's exactly what it needs to be. It's not meant to be a clean part, or to me, even the word saying clean vocals, I don't think really describes the way that Matt sings on this record. I think he is fully grown and stepped into his voice. I mean, it sounds like Matt's singing from all these records, but this is the most full and most in command of his vocal range that he's ever been in.
This record, when people hear it, is going to really be, really excite people, and also people that are unfamiliar with us, I think, will hear something that they're not accustomed to hearing, maybe on radio or just in general. Personally, everyone's performances on this album is the best they've ever played on a record.
I feel like with this music, this could be the best chance we've had, because it's some of the best songs we've ever had, some of the greatest songwriting we've ever had. And I only hope that we can reach as many people as possible.
This record was just about writing the best songs possible, and we put in our 10,000 hours these last 10 years of playing thousands of shows, recording 6-7 albums. Every step along the way has taught us a lot.
Hopefully this record will expand our fan base and broaden the horizons, and also make everything bigger and better, and just keep bringing everyone great music and really great live shows. So hopefully we'll see everyone out there on our tour for this album.
Oh, skinny papa.